Welcome to season 3 of Being Unapologetically Authentic, the podcast where we embrace our whole selves so that we can succeed on our own terms. My name is June Tian. I am your host of this podcast, and as a mom of 2, with this podcast, a best-selling author, a TEDx Oneonta speaker, and the creator of the Success Method, I teach my clients, and now you, how to have it all without the overwhelm and hustle. Let's get started. Hey everybody, it's Jean Tian, and welcome back to another episode of my podcast, Being Unapologetically Authentic. I am so happy that you're here with me today, and I wanted to just use this opportunity to talk about something that's not career related. Now, I know that the theme of this season was supposed to be about career success or corporate success, but I want to say that I don't think, I'm going to put it out there and state it very boldly. You cannot have career success if you have personal problems that are holding you back. Somewhere along the way, something's going to fall and it'll all come crumbling down one way or another. So we may delude ourselves or mislead ourselves into thinking that we have everything under control if we can ignore the problems at home. But it doesn't really work that way. At some point, somewhere, something's going to get clogged in the wheel and the dam will burst. So it is very important to look at our personal commitments. And this one is about parenting and motherhood specifically, in order to talk about corporate success, in order to achieve sustainable corporate success. Because in the long run, that's what we want. We want something that we can be doing until the day that we say we're done with it, rather than the day that someone else tells us that we're done with it. So in this situation, some of you, if you follow me on Instagram, what you may see is I've been starting to put up these really funny memes about parenting and parenthood or motherhood and what it means, or basically what it doesn't mean, which is that anybody really know what we're doing when it comes to parenthood. I think all we can do, or all we know how to do, is our best in any given situation. What I have noticed a lot of in my own personal experience, both with the way that I am as a mom to my kids, as well as what I hear from my mother friends, right, mommy friends, is that there's so much second guessing that happens in our decisions as a parent for the safety and sanity and wellness of our kids. And what I have very much seen, and what I'm starting to appreciate, is that as a parent, we want to be able to provide them with the most warming environment, with the most supportive of environments. And oftentimes we confuse that as the most perfect of environments. And unfortunately, the perfection doesn't exist. I moved my kid from public school into private school, thinking that private school was going to deliver them this education that public school couldn't. Specifically, my public school district is actually ranked very, very high in New York State, which is where we live. And there really isn't a reason to put my kids into private school other than the fact that my oldest had a really negative experience with 1 or 2 teachers in public school, in elementary school. And so we started to look around, and plus at the same time, we didn't really like this whole focus and time taken out of the education curriculum to prep them for the state exams so that, at the end of the day, the school can get more money. And it doesn't really benefit my child directly, because I was seeing how much stress those state exams and their performance on the state exams was being put onto the kids during class time, which was being used as state test prep time. And so that motivated me, in addition to the negative experiences that my older son had, to go look for a different kind of education, which I thought was going to be provided by private school. So my kids are in private school. It's the second year that they're in, and my son is experiencing a lot of the same issues that he had in private school. And more importantly, however, the issues are not necessarily related to my son's behavior he doesn't have behavioral issues. And I'm saying that as a mom, but I'm also saying that because we don't have that kind of dialogue with the school. But what we're seeing is a lot of the stress from testing. Now, it's not state testing anymore. It's teacher enforced testing or teacher mandated testing, right? So in the classroom. And I'll give an example. Last week they had 4 tests. Then they had the SSAT that they were encouraged to take this year. And then they have 4 tests this week. My son had 2 tests on Tuesday, 2 tests on Wednesday, and he was out sick on Tuesday because he just wasn't feeling well, physical ailment. And when he went back to school on Wednesday, he was required to take all 4 tests on the same day, which is just ridiculous given the fact that he is not even in his teenage years yet. He is only in middle school. And I had emailed the school and I had said, this is just not permitted by me. I will not permit it. It is not supporting his mental health. And even though the school had promised me that they would work with him, the teachers had actually just said, no, you have to take it. This is the rule. I was extremely upset, clearly, because expectations was that he would work with the school in order to come up with a makeup test schedule, which would have been a lot more reasonable. So we talk about expectations again. And we talk about the expectations that the school would have my kids' well-being as their number one priority. And what I have recognized over and over and over again is that the school has zero interest in my kids' mental and physical well-being. And there have been incidents at the school with regards to his physical well-being. So I can easily say that they have zero interest in maintaining my kids' physical and mental well-being. Their number one priority, despite what they may say, is not about keeping my child safe and empowering them to be their best selves and helping them think critically and providing them with an academically challenging environment. Their number one interest is making sure that they continue to have dollars in the door. And it's very obvious and it's very clear. And there are some parents who are okay with it. And there are other parents who are like myself, and we're not okay with it because we send our kids to these schools because we want them to be able to deliver what they promise, right? Otherwise, it's false advertising. Otherwise, we would pick another school. So, whole point is, I'm sorry, I was like trying to figure out what was I talking about this about again? Anyway, so the whole point for this conversation is that as parents, we entrust others to take care of our kids as we would ourselves. And, I think as we would ourselves, there are good days and there are bad days. And when it comes to school, there will be good days and there will be bad days. But if the bad days are outnumbering the good days, then we have to really reevaluate what it is that we are expecting for our children and what it is that we are trying to do for our children. And are we still doing it for our children, or are we doing it because we're avoiding a decision, we're avoiding fear of judgment, or we're avoiding some other situation that we think may negatively harm the child? And I'll say it this way. I put my kid into private school because I thought it would be a much more academically enriching and challenging environment for my kids. What I realized is that it's not for both of them. And for my son, the conversation has really focused on whether or not we keep him in the school or do we bring him back into public school. I've had multiple conversations. There's never a right answer, and nobody will ever have a right answer for you. You as the parent, just as I as the parent, have to make that decision and do what's best for our kid. And what I realized is that as I was going through this decision-making process, and as I still do go through this decision-making process, much of the time my thoughts revert back to, well, what would they say? Like, would they look down on my child? because, the conversation after he leaves could be, oh, he couldn't hack it. And that's not the case. The case is mommy just doesn't want to deal with this right now, right? And because of the fact that we have realized that no matter how much we try, nothing will be done to improve the situation. So we're literally banging our head against the wall, expecting the school to take our complaint seriously, even though they've demonstrated a failure to do so for 1.5 years now. And so this conversation around what we have at home and how it plays with the concept of expectations, how it plays with our need to control, how it plays with our own personal sense of self and self-worth as a parent in this case, right? Or, if you don't have kids, as a spouse or as a daughter or as a neighbor, whatever it is, that role that you play outside of work, how does that come into play when it comes to your corporate environment? And I think it's very, very difficult to be able to separate one and the two. And I say that because if you feel a sense of self that is missing from home life, you're going to start to seek that in your corporate life. So here's an example. If you feel that you have no control at home, then you're going to want to exert control in other areas of your life. And that could very much include your corporate life. And that could be, the way that you treat your employees, the way that you treat your colleagues, and even the way that you treat your career at the organization or at future organizations that you're in now. You may want to control to make sure that everything turns out perfectly, because you can't, or you feel like you can't manage what would happen if things don't go the way that you expect, because they don't fit into nice little neat packages that you can then be able to dictate, okay, well, you go here and you go there and you go there. And then everybody at the end will come into this like pot of gold, happy place, and everybody will win, 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 win. You may see it as a win, 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 win for everyone, but everyone may not see it as a win for themselves. And so our need to control at work could very much be driven by the lack of control that we have in other areas of our life, including our personal life, including our life as a mom, and including our life as a parent, and vice versa. The lack of control that we have at work could influence the need for our control over our kids, over our husbands or our spouse, over our family members, over our friends. The lack of belonging that we have at work could very much force us to look for a place outside of work to belong, which then kind of blind us, right, into making decisions that may not be for our best or may not be for our highest interest, because we're looking at it from a place of need rather than a place of desire, rather than a place of gratitude. And I don't want to even just say gratitude, but in a place of addition. And I mean addition by this will add to my life rather than this will fill a hole in my life. Because when you add to your life, you recognize that your life is already full, in the sense that it has all of your needs already fulfilled, and anything else is gratitude. It's added value. So that's where the gratitude comes from. But so often, if we can't see these things because we're so focused on filling in the gaps that we don't have, whether it's at home or at work, we get so caught up in the self-doubt. We get so caught up in the negatives, and we get so caught up in fighting to control, fighting to make things happen so that we can fill whatever need is driving that fight. And what I realized is that this morning I was actually just thinking about it. I am so tired of fighting. So tired of fighting. I am so tired of fighting for people to recognize how brilliant my kid is. I am so tired of fighting for the school to be able to understand, how to do better or to ask them to do better. Because at the end of the day, they'll only do better when the money stops rolling in. And I know exactly how to control that part, right? And I also know, how to share my stories with others. I am so tired of fighting with my kid for him to see the value of the education that he has. And I was so tired and I was so blinded by this need for him to see the value of the education that he had that it took me a year and a half to see what he was seeing, that this education was of no value at all, because all they were doing was test prepping the kids, asking them to cram useless data into their brain with the hope that somehow it will prepare them for high school. This kid has 2 more years for high school. Cramming something we all know is very short-lived, short-term memory. It's not going to stay and it's not going to stick when you have long breaks in between, like summer break, winter break, spring break, etc. And so when we keep fighting because we want things to go as we expected, we don't see things for what they truly are. We don't see how to either truly appreciate the situation that we're in and to be grateful for it, or to recognize that it's time to leave, or it's maybe time to do something different before. And then we just try to keep going and going and going until we force it somehow to meet some expectations of ours. And I don't know about you, but what I realize is that I keep shifting my expectations. I keep shifting what I know to be important for my kids and to keep compromising on that because I want things to meet my expectations, because I need it to justify a decision or a lack of decision somehow. When we start to recognize things for what they truly are and we stop fighting for it to be what we think it should be, that's when we can make the best decisions. That's when we can start to teach our kids how to make the best decisions for themselves as well, through example, through having conversations, going through the thought process with them. And change is scary, no matter what. Change is scary. It's scary for him. It's scary for me. It's scary for everyone around us. But change is part of life. It's the only constant in life. The expectations that change will never happen is just delusional. Change will always happen. Even if the outside of your world does not change, meaning the material things that you surround yourself in, the physical things around you, the people that you surround yourself with, even if you have a best friend since you were 2 months old and you're 60 years old now, the two of you have still changed. Now, what you have done, what you have done very well is to evolve and change together, but you both have changed. And it's not to say that tomorrow a change will not happen, that maybe the two of you aren't friends anymore. Or maybe the friendship, as good as it is today, wasn't as good as it is tomorrow, or yesterday, or, won't be as good as it is tomorrow. Change is the constant. And the more that we believe that we can prevent change from happening, the more that we go into fight mode. And the more that we feel like we need to fight everyone else around us, fighting them to understand who we are, fighting them to understand that we're right, fighting them and, like basically being assholes. And I'm sorry for the language, but basically being assholes and just mean people, because that's the way we think we need to be in order to get what we want. No, you need to get what you want or you get what you want by releasing the need to control, by releasing this belief or this myth that you know better. And trust me, I've been there. I'm the one that often says I can see through things. I can see from A to Z, and I can see through from A to Z what the best process is. But at the end of the day, what I don't see is the zigzags that get you from A to Z. I see the starting point and I see where the end point should be. And everything in between has to be an allowance of the situation and a clarity. And the clarity that you have, the more clear and the more clarity that you have on the situation will actually get you to Z much faster than what you think you can do. And as you're doing it, you're actually going to develop friends and not enemies. So this concept where personal and professional lives are separate and apart is complete nonsense. It really is. It's complete nonsense. And this is why I've always created my programs around the person as a whole when I'm working with individuals, because I'm working with the person as a whole. And even though my clients may come to me and share with me a really frustrating thing that happened at work, what ultimately results or what ultimately comes out in our conversation, in our sessions, is that it's more than that. It's more than the coworker. It's something inside of us that is forcing our need to have certain things from happening. Sorry, I have an itchy throat. And this is what creates a lot more of the tension that happens at work than it needs to be. Excuse me. And so I think our expectations keep us from seeing things clearly. And it is so funny because I'm thinking about this and I was not planning on focusing this whole season on expectations. But what I'm starting to see is that expectations come in everywhere. And even when we don't think we have any and we think we're open-minded and we don't control anywhere, I bet you that you can find a set of expectations somewhere. A bob is what I'll call a block of beliefs. In whatever situation that you're having trouble in right now, that is creating havoc in your life. Yeah. And it doesn't matter if it's in your personal life or in your professional life, it's there. And same expectations, I will guarantee you, run through both your personal and your professional lives. And I bet you are seeing repeated patterns that are being manifesting itself because of these expectations. And so when you can get to the bottom of these expectations, well, first you have to identify the expectations and then get to the bottom of the expectations in terms of why you have these expectations. What are you trying to do with these expectations? Then you can start to release them or adjust them at least, right? So that you can let go of this fight. I feel like all we do is fight, and I'm so tired of it. It's so annoying. I'm so sick of it. And most of all, we fight against ourselves, and it manifests into this fight with other people. We fight against ourselves because we question ourselves so damn much all the time, questioning ourselves if we're making the right decisions, because we're not seeing the results that we thought we would see if we were to make, do choice A. If we were to pick choice A, we would expect X to happen. But when X doesn't happen, then did we make the right choice? Was it supposed to be choice B or C? Well, what if choice B and C would have brought you to X anyway? But we don't know that because we made a choice. And we made it based off of what we knew best at that time, which is why clarity is so important. And the more clear we are, the less we doubt our decisions. And the less we doubt our decisions, the less we fight against ourselves, and we allow ourselves to accept what is today so that we can get to what will be tomorrow. And that we can make the best decisions for tomorrow with the most clarity that we have today. And when we stop fighting against ourselves all the time, oh my gosh, we get to rest. We finally get to rest. We finally get to say, like, okay, we can breathe. We finally allow our shoulders to relax, our body to start to relax, our immune system to get stronger. We stop shoving disgusting foods in our mouth because, we need comfort. But what are we comforting ourselves from? Oh yeah, it's this fight against ourselves. We are literally killing ourselves. Not only are we fighting ourselves with the doubts that we have because of the decisions that we make, but we're killing ourselves because we think we're giving ourselves comfort with all of this disgusting food or movie or drugs or alcohol or whatever it is. Like, we think it's comfort, but it's not. It's numbing ourselves because we're so afraid of looking at what is in front of us because, oh my God, it doesn't meet our expectations. Oh my God, I couldn't predict that from happening. Oh my God, I couldn't prevent that from happening. Oh my God, I'm a failure. But you're not a failure. We're just freaking human. And we're just moms, and we're just people that have emotions. And it's okay. And if we would like to do better, if we would like to stop feeling this fight within us all the time, it's totally possible. You can do it. You can let it go. And it's not that important. And you are worth it. As in, you are worth the peace that comes with it. And I think so many of us don't believe we're worthy of peace of mind, peace of body, and just peaceful rest. Because we think that in order to be somebody, we have to prove it on the outside, when in reality, it all happens on the inside. So I think this is as much of a reminder for myself as I hope it has been helpful for every one of you out there listening. And thank you so much for doing so. If you have found some aha moment from this episode, please do like and share, because I think there are so many of us out there that we hate fighting, and we're really looking for that peace within ourselves. And so if you feel that, and if you believe that a friend or family could use this to help them find that peace within themselves, let's help them out and share. And so I hope you guys all have a great holiday season, and I promise to be much more consistent with this podcast release, and I will share coming up. I had meant to sooner, but this was very timely. And for those of you who don't know, as an intuitive, I give the messages that really need to be shared sooner rather than later. And mostly because otherwise I'll forget. So it's not because, it's life and death. It's just more because if I don't do it now, I'll probably forget. And that's not good, because then, you guys don't get the message either. So thank you for putting up with me. Thank you for understanding that I have very unconventional ways when it comes to podcasts. And always, 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 thank you so much for your support. Bye, guys.